This is Into the Unknown, Season 5, Episode 10. Despite the strange or weird title, this episode is about runes. Dig in for a quick survey of this ancient divination practice. I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick.
Well, John, isn't this weird or
Weird
strange?
and wild stuff, man.
Yeah.
Weird.
We're going to have a runic adventure, man. Okay, so today I pull from two contemporary books, oddly both coming out of the 1980s. Now, I do not know specifically because of time, as these past two episodes have shown. There is a later one by Wyrd Thorson, and he first published his in 1988. It might have been in response to Ralph Blum's book here that I'm waving in front of you there, which was very popular from 83. So I don't know whether Thorson went, oh, he's full of it, let me put mine out there. But I will say Thorson does criticize Blum's book a little bit and methods, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So, but I'm just saying, is one in response to the other? I can't put my finger right on it, but it seems like maybe it was. But the key is that there are two books that I'm using anyway. Well, I love a good synchronicity, John. These are those events that make you take notice because they're so specific. Now, soon after releasing Wyrd Water.
Oh, Wyrd Water.
Wyrd Water.
Yeah, I remember Wyrd Water, yes.
The title of this episode is Wyrd Well.
Wyrd Well.
Well, I found myself perusing the shelves in Gramps' attic books in Old Ellicott City, and I ran across this book by Wyrd Thorson, At the Well of Wyrd, a handbook of runic divination. Now, it was intriguing for its apparent age, and this printing that I have is from 93, but it was first published, as I said, in 88. Now, and Gramps' books has a dearth of paranormal, so
yeah,
it was coming home with me.
I like Gramps' books, but
yeah, and even when I
sometimes
asked him,
sometimes I wonder if he's really trying to sell those books or just wants to be surrounded by them all the time.
Yeah, he was not exactly happy that I was asking him for anything, apparently. Yeah. But he's not exactly mean. Yeah,
no.
He's just sort of quiet.
He's eccentric.
Yeah. Now, obviously, since this book spoke to mystical runes, that captured my attention as well. All right. But I also noticed the spelling and the use of the word weird. Now, if you're looking at the title, it's spelled W-Y-R-D, weird. Now, I knew of this word, that it existed as a word and spelled that way, but not much more. So that intrigued me too. And when I got to the end of chapter 2 and reading it, it really felt like the book was correcting me. And thus the synchronicity. And here's the passage. So again, I'm coming off of Wyrd Water. And here's the quote. Do you want to read the quote for me, please? Are you there?
The quote, yes. In our colloquial language, the term weird has come to be synonymous with strange. In former times, a weird experience was one which seemed to have its origins in the numinous, in the world of the gods. A weird experience caused the hair to rise on the back of the neck and was felt to be highly significant.
Okay, thank you. Now that's quite a distinction between the uses of the word weird, and I had fallen into that trap as well, unawares. I had presented weird as synonymous with simply strange, a somewhat negative, non-conventional connotation. And that is really exactly what I wanted to invoke by using the word weird in the title Wyrd Water. It was weird. Now, it was intentionally colloquial, but I think we ended up finding, John, that water to be quite numinous, ineffable, and more like a fluid of the gods. Not just strange, but quite magical in a godly sense. So in my world, I was offered this book from the universe to correct and refine my thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To me, it was significant. So that's my opening, the linking of Wyrd Water and Wyrd Well for me, seemed linked in the way that they came to me, as information often does, falling into my hands while working on this podcast. Sometimes things just arrive, and they're well placed. Now, I especially like the mundane link of water and well sitting at the top of it.
Sure.
But that's how the phenomenon can work sometimes if you're paying attention, those layers of meaning. All right, now let's bring it back. The Wyrd Well, where weird is defined as numinous, of the gods, highly significant, is a discussion of runes, or more accurately, runic divination. Now, if the opening felt meaningless, think again. Looking for links, meaning, revelations, and new and refined insight is also what runic divination is about. Now, the word rune itself means mystery and comes from the Gothic language or language of the Goths. Rune casting is a journey into the mysteries of the relationship between humanity and the gods. More accurately, casting runes is a conversation with the gods. Now, those that cast runes are called Runesters.
I've never heard that, but okay.
I am not crazy about that term.
No.
Seems like more to the name of a social club, doesn't it? The Runesters.
I'm just upset they're not called goths. I mean,
yeah, right. That's right. The local
I was thinking about
the Runesters.
I was thinking about riffing on goth for a second there.
Yeah.
No, he wants me to be serious. I'm going to stay serious. Okay,
You could have. I would have been funny.
All right,
because I thought it myself.
No, I also wasn't sure I wanted to say something and get myself into trouble somehow. But go.
Yeah,
let's just keep going.
There might be some goths listening, and that's fine. But we're not thinking about that. Okay. Now, runes are in essence a writing system very much like our 26-letter alphabet. So, as Thorson tells us, at the mundane and the cosmic level, they are a communication system. He tells us they represent a code given to us by Odin, where encoded messages can be delivered to those that bother to listen. But more deeply, he says, runes are within you. They are actually mirrors by which you can see yourself more clearly.
Okay. I'm coming to this completely cold.
Yeah.
Except for all the stuff I have about runes from Norse mythology in my head, and I don't know where we're going yet. So I'm just going to let you keep playing this out, and we'll see where we go.
But the books
this is matching so far with some interesting
good.
with observations from the mythology. Good.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I pull a here. Conversation with gods that are within you. Well, there's more to come on that, and that should sound familiar to listeners. Now, perhaps to some, this sounds simplistic, but this writing system and the method of casting runes can be a doorway to deep and complex levels of meaning and personal development, if given the time and space. All right, now let's jog over here and have a little history.
Okay.
All right, and this is where... All right, well, I'm just going to present it, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are. Now, stretching far back into the past, and it is suggested that runes really began as etchings in rock of symbols that held meaning. Alongside of these images, linguistic traditions were also in development. That is, a sound correlated to a symbol or letter. Now, we're very familiar with this, A, B, C, D. These are letters that represent sounds. These two developmental tracks of symbolism and linguistic alphabetic scripts were joined by the practice of divination, or sortilege, specifically amongst Italic and Germanic peoples, where we're drawing this information from. But the message here is that the symbols carved in stone and then onto other objects, such as tools and weapons, span the ages and all peoples. Now, this is really a tradition that springs from all humans, but all told, the specific evidence of these icons taking the shapes we know today really coalesced in the Germanic tribes from about the 2nd century onward. The unified system is known as the Elder Futhark, the oldest form of the runic alphabet. Now, frankly, this concept of sound, symbol, God, creation, and divination really speaks to the heart of spiritual and religious belief. Now, the book of John, chapter 1, reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Now, what is a word but sound and symbols? You can see it, understand it, and say it, creating a sound. It is an act of creation. God said, "Let there be light," and thus he spoke creation into existence. Now, this is a metaphysical discussion beyond us for today, but, there's a lot to dig into there and a lot of correlation. But going back, the person who knows the shapes and the sounds and how to read them is powerful indeed. These are early shamans, holy men, witch doctors, seers, oracles, so many names and manifestations of this in the past. There is much more to that story and far more complexity. Now, I've only offered the simplest of simplification in the interest of time. But here's what we need to know today. We are aware there are 24 symbols, runes, that have specific meaning and names. 25 if you count the blank rune. You familiar with the blank rune?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I am.
As it is known, it's called the blank rune. And it was added as an innovation, representing the mystery of the unknowable. Now, this innovation, that is, adding a symbol to a list of ancient symbols, also speaks to the evolutionary aspect to this. It changes over time to suit the needs of the present. Now, take note. You talk about evolution. In the old days, only the symbol literate could use the symbols. Today, you can buy runes and a book of instruction from Amazon. Talk about evolution.
Yes.
And fitting the present. And you mentioned that very thing when we started, I think maybe off before we started the recording, right? Like the gaps and and just all the different evolutions of these things. Now, there's a traditional order the runes are supposed to be represented in, as promulgated by Thorson in his book. And he criticizes the book by Ralph Blum, who openly admits that he broke with tradition in ordering the runes for his book. Now, Blum even says he asked the runes how they wanted to be ordered. Are you familiar with that story?
No, did he just did he throw the runes and just use the order they came up in?
He put them on the table and he said, "Tell me how you want to be ordered." And while he was sitting there, he put them in an order and he said, "This is how they want to be ordered." Okay. So he asked the runes how they want to be ordered. Now, and that's how it apparently came about.
Now, you do know that Futhark, the word that you used earlier, that comes about because of the order of the runes. I know. Sort of like alphabet is alpha, beta.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and there is he's saying he's breaking from that elder Futhark, which it's just the ordering of it. And I could have gone and pulled all that in. There's like 3 series of 4 or something like that, or whatever.
It's just interesting that there's this much discussion in the modern world about the order of the runes, and when you're trying to use them for something. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have a. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just remarking that Thorson has it out for Blum because he ordered them differently than tradition, and Blum, I think, was unapologetic because he said, I asked them. And I personally love that.
That's interesting.
The runes probably appreciated being asked how they felt once in a while. It's all about you. Nobody asks me anything. Of course, I'm being facetious, but only a little bit.
Only a little. Yeah, I understand.
All right. Now, in a practical sense, these 24 symbols and the one blank one are etched, painted, written, or carved onto individual pieces or pips. And I'm asking you, for the listeners, think Scrabble tiles. That'll be the best, quickest apprehension of these if you're not familiar with the runes. Now, they can be made of wood, clay, metal, leather, paper. And while some materials are more preferable, they'll still work no matter what you use. Scraps of paper with inked drawings would suffice. Now, here I'll add that making your set to use day to day is the preferred method as a way to energize the items and symbols with your energy and your power. But again, it does not completely blunt the effect if you do not. But the counterpoint is respecting the ritual, the symbols, and giving care and time and attention always seems to add power. And I think that's just good advice for anything you want to achieve. Give it time and attention. And as they say, where attention goes, energy flows.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah. So, that's right out of the self-help movement. That's from James Redfield, Tony Robbins, and the Celestine Prophecy crowd, which is an extension of the New Thought ideas. And that's really just a way to say how all of this is actually really very old. We just recycle these ideas.
I just wanted to ask, I know you've got at least one set of runes. Did you make yours?
I haven't, not yet.
No? Okay, and you just got the one set?
I have it. I have what was I bought. Actually, this set was bought for me. And I haven't. And no, I have not made my own.
Oh, okay.
But I do use the ones that are in the back.
I've got at least 2 sets. I might have a third that is functional. One set I made. I made all my sets because I'm cheap. That's why I didn't.
So, do you have Blum's book?
No, I don't.
You don't.
Actually.
Okay,
I don't.
I would actually recommend it.
I made the sets. One is out of wood. I just went to Michael's and bought the little wood discs, and I took my Dremel and I cut the runes into there and painted them up, and then they're all waxed up and they're in a little bag.
Awesome.
Yeah,
good for you.
I think I might have 2 sets. Maybe if I'm right, I will go home and check. I will give you the second set.
Oh, wow.
Like that. Why not?
That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be cool.
But they are fun to make. I did make a more elaborate set out of clay. I went and I got the modeling clay.
Yeah.
What do they call it?
Plasticine.
Plasticine stuff. Yeah. It's got a brand name.
Yeah.
Something that when it described it when it would be fired, it would look like stone.
Yeah.
So I modeled 25 of these discs, and I pressed into the clay before I fired it up the runes, threw it in the oven, came out, painted the symbols on there so you can clearly see the rune.
Yeah.
And that's my more elaborate set.
Okay.
And I don't know which I like better because the wood is like more rustic, but the ones that look like stones are like, they look good.
Yeah, they look cool. I mean, I think it's a matter of preference, and to put the energy into it, I think is awesome. Well,
plastic clay.
Well,
what would Odin do?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like, we talk about what Jesus would do if he were here. What would he do?
But he'd
do something modern.
These were made for my on again off again cosplay Odin costume for Halloween.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. That you could actually pull out the runes on for your belt. Right?
I add a little bit at a time to be more and more elaborate and look more and more like the Allfather, especially as I get older.
Yeah. You got to grow that beard out.
I should grow the beard out, but I don't think Julie would like a beard.
Well, who cares what Julie? She could.
Yeah, I care.
I
care what she cares.
Yes, you do. That's probably wise. Good for you.
I digress. I just wanted, but you brought up the making of the runes, I thought that was a good place to mention that I had made 2 sets. I think I used the Elder Fothark.
Well, I do have gifted plasticine clay sitting nearby, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? Aside from what it was gifted to me for, which was to make clay mushrooms of all things.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But and Angie gave me that, and I said, well, I'll use some of it to make runes. So
they come out nice. They've got a little heft. They got a lot more heft actually than the wooden ones. But I mean, I could use a different wooden tile too. But it is interesting and fun to come out because I got little pouches for them too.
Yeah,
right. You can go crazy with this.
You can,
and they look nice. It's a nice crafting project. And if you believe any of this at all, you have put your energy into that for sure. I mean, that's why I've made 2 sets. And they are the sense of accomplishment you come up with at the other end and ownership of this thing
Right.
that did not exist in the first place. It is part of this process. Yes.
Well, and what you like to say often is, in a sense, it's a conversation with history you're having and your hands. The tactile creation of the runes is, if it's strictly just
that's why I have these projects
of creation, you're creating something that is historically very old.
Yep.
And there's power in that.
Okay, I didn't mean to drag you off, but it seemed like the right place to talk about crafting runes.
That's perfect spot. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, again, I have the bag that came, the bag of runes that came with the book, and they serve me well. But I think I will be interested in creating my own.
And like I said, I'm just sorry you didn't tell me this was the topic today, or I'd have brought a set along and shown you, and we could have thrown some. And
yeah, that's right. Anyway. Well, I thought maybe I should have grabbed the bag for the episode. Maybe we can. You
can always pause this recording.
We could. Let's see if we.
Okay,
let's see if it
keep
calls
going.
for it.
Let's just keep going.
Yeah. All right. So in a practical sense, and again, getting into the practical use, we've hinted at it, but let's get, for the uninitiated, let's talk about this. Now, in a practical sense, one must ask a question to the runes. So not unlike our tarot episode with Melanie, John, you came with the question, and that's important. So you're going to hold a question in your mind. You're going to have a method to choose pips to come forward. And there's many ways you could do that. You could simply dip your hand in the bag and pull one out. I've actually done a version where I will toss the bag onto a cushion and see which one presents itself, because I'm told that there is, like with cards, sometimes tarot dealers will manipulate the cards, and there is one that stands out, and that's the one you're supposed to have. So there's all kinds of ways.
Yep.
And finally, you're supposed to interpret the meaning, and that's how it works. It's as simple as that. Now, I will ask John, since we did stop and you talked about not having the book, where are you getting your meanings from when you use them? Do you have do you just have an online thing that you, or another book, or?
No. I do have some other books that describe some traditional meanings of the words that are, because most of they all represent sounds, and those sounds can correspond to traditionally particular words, and then those words have suggestions, and I don't know what's in your books, so I don't know how universal this really is. But I don't use them very often. But I had some material that I used that I consulted before I made them.
But it's not, you can't point to one book or another,
right? But like I can't remember the correspondence here. I remember the translated word. One of the runes corresponds to cattle,
right?
And cattle were a measure of your wealth and status,
right.
So that rune really relates to the wealth,
right,
or potentially status by extension. So when you start to throw runes in relation to your question, then it goes back to the psychological questions of divination that we addressed in the tarot episode about. Well, what is the relationship of this rune to your question? And that's the art of trying to read. Divine from runes is telling that story out of the limited information that the rune presents, which is why some people will pull one rune and say, what does this have to do with my day?
Right.
And often that mystery reveals itself through the course of your day,
right,
rather than telling you in advance,
like, here's what you should choose.
Cattle comes up. Well, what does that mean in my day? It's not going to tell you what to do that day.
Right.
At the end of your day, you should reflect back and say, well, what did that rune mean in the context of my day? Was it wealth? Did I have a bank error? Did I get a bonus?
There's a couple of ways to approach that. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, you can certainly reflect, because the meaning becomes even more clear, but it can also move you in a direction based on, like, I knew my day was about going to this interview. Right. I drew cattle. This is an indication of wealth. So it is acknowledging my goal to improve myself with this interview to gain my wealth. I feel
Yeah.
a strong
Well-
portent that this interview will go well, potentially.
Right,
And it guides you, right?
But true. And,
And it
there are a
offers
lot
an-
of levels
and
to
offers
that
yeah.
that you can go on, because if part of your question was, should I ask for more money than I'm
Right,
making now?
right.
You by extension might look at that and say, well, not only
Right.
is this telling me I'm going well, but it's answering that other question I have in this situation about asking for the raise
Yeah.
or the increase in my salary over what I've got now. It depends, and there are a lot of ways to do this,
does.
but that's the art, because with the cards, you get all this information out of the story depicted on the Rider Waite Smith card artwork, because they all have artwork. The rune, you've just got this abstract set of lines on the item.
well.
And you really do have to do a little more work and
You do.
intuitive work to pull out a meaning.
So
Well,
the book gives you, it's going to give you a decent write-up.
Yeah.
And that's what I would recommend.
I guess
people. Even Thorson has, it was an oral tradition until someone wrote it down.
right.
I have noticed a little bit of drift between the two books, and I expect that.
And that's
right?
also why I talked about the gap.
But the other
I don't want to
thing
get into that
I'll
now.
do,
Right.
that's
but you can
kind of
see,
that's immaterial to me.
Yeah.
But not to make it simplistic, because I think it can be simplistic. But what I mentioned in the beginning is that the revelation of material and layering of meaning is a matter of how much time and care and attention you give it.
Right.
If
And
you
practice.
never sit down and have any self-introspection, you're not going to be inspired much by anything anyone tells you. On the other hand, if you regularly sit down and you say, boy, how did I act today? What did I give? What did I receive? What is my thought on this? What do I believe about this? What is my take on this or that? Pulling cattle as I head into an interview could really be prompting you for the need for a deep understanding of your relationship with wealth. Do I need it? Do I want it? Why do I seek it? Why do I not do more with less? And that type of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And so rather than just somebody looking for the next answer, which we get into a little bit of that,
Right.
It's really the impetus to have the thought at all.
Yeah, that's what makes it an art. Yep.
That's right.
It's
the art of self-reflection, which
far
is why
more
I also brought in the New Thoughters, because that's it comes right out of the self-help. But we're going to get into that.
Okay.
All right, let's keep going. Now, and there I go for an example. It's funny that we kind of reflect this. It's in the script here. And so I say, I'm going to provide an example. Now, I might come forward and ask, what do I need to know about my career this week? Funny. I then use some method to select a rune or lay out a series in a pattern before me. Now, there are many to choose from or to develop, but to develop your own is really the way you should go about it. And it can be as simple as selecting the rune from the bag, which I just said a few seconds ago. And this is common. In fact, Blum, the Blum set comes with a bag, as we've already said. Now, let's say I pull out the rune Awaz. Now, for the listener, the rune visually resembles the letter M. So Awaz, if I were to look it up in the book, it looks like the letter M, but it's called Awaz. Now, having the rune in hand, I would then refer to the book and read the meaning. Now, in this case, Awaz is a rune of transit, transition, and movement, new attitudes, or new life. All right. Now, there's much more discourse written in the book to help you discern the meaning that it holds for you. I pulled this from Ralph Blum's book, those indications of what it might mean, and therein lies the actual function. Read the meaning and find out what inspires your thought regarding the question you asked. Where do those thoughts lead? What seems to be the best way forward, or the action to take, or what action to not take, as the case may be? Now, what insight does it provide? Now, those are the very stripped down basics. Now, again, John, we find ourselves at the threshold of wonder. We wonder, what are we doing when Runesters cast runes? What are Runesters invoking? What are we tapping into? Now, in the prayer episode, we realized that many people To many people, the details of their religions or spiritual systems matter. Tarot expert Melanie had a detailed card reading procedure and accoutrement as influenced by the Theosophical Society. Now, rituals are carefully designed. Implements have power and meaning, as do symbols, words, incantations, dress, costumes, regalia, or garb. I mean, you yourself even mentioned having cosplay with as Odin.
I have the Odin garb that I continue to
Yeah,
work on. Yes,
that's great for Halloween, and I don't know if you're gonna
Yule.
throw runes for somebody.
Yeah.
Now, even the day and the time are significant parts of strengthening and focusing one's power. Now, here I'm going to pin astrology, and it would appear that your skyward exposure during gestation and birth in the fetal water bathes you in archetypical expectation. That is, that birth signs suggest personality inclinations. All right. Now, the use of the word power here is defined as the ease with which the energy you generate is able to move through you and bring about the achieved effect. Now, all faiths and beliefs share this common motif. Now, you've certainly heard the invective, "The power of Christ compels you." Now, yes, indeed, for a faithful person using that phrase, the power is compelling. Demons beware. Now, rune casting is no different, but unlike an act of worship, giving thanks, or exorcising demonic beings, rune casting is a divination power activity. Runes are a tool, and the goal is to divine, to know, to reveal through divine interaction. And who better to ask than the gods? And by the gods, I mean you. Yes, the original Runesters considered themselves gods when casting. Now, we've touched upon this a little in the prayer episode, you may recall. The question of, is God in me? Is God accessed through an intermediary, therefore outside of me? You remember that. Now, these questions are heavily debated, as we've discovered, but Runesters, well, they take a very specific stance. Now, Odin, the god himself, is said to have cast runes. As the myth goes, when hanging upside down from Yggdrasil, Odin discovered and cast runes. And so too, apparently, are we. We are gods when we cast runes, according to this lore. And we seek the help of fates. The fates step in and give us clues to our likely future. Did you catch that? Likely. And we'll discuss that shortly. Now, Urlog is the Germanic concept of fate. The future is not set and is not immutable. But Urlog also represents the past, which is set and dictates the future. Then the present, then, is the current unfolding of Urlog. Now, in the Germanic languages, and even in our own modern terms, there is no future tense. We need the action verb will to describe future events. I will go to work. It says that it is a future action, but it hasn't happened yet. Not like the past, where it is done and over with, but has a direct influence on your future. Now, Wyrd, W-Y-R-D, suggests old habits are hard to break, that your very ingrained past guides your likely future. But by discerning your very ingrained past, your likely future is revealed, thus offering a chance to choose differently. Now, allow me to add just a little more detail from this old Germanic philosophy. And I don't want to go into too much detail because there's a lot there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of terms that probably would confuse matters. I mean, it all makes sense, but it's a lot. It's very detailed.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah, I need to hear where you're going before I can
Yeah,
comment.
no, I understand.
I feel like you're casting about for me to say something. I'm not quite sure what to say yet.
Well, I'm telling you it's complicated, and you go, yeah, it's probably wise not to get too complicated, is what I was casting about for.
I don't know. Maybe I want to complicate some things.
All right, well, I'll open the book and read from it.
No.
But by casting runes, I am seeking the discernment of one, insight into action and reaction, cause and effect, and there's a name for that, which I'm going to just leave out.
Okay.
2, there's a quote here, bearers of fate.
Uh-huh.
Now, these are attachments to me that strongly influence what I do. So there's this concept of me, but there are bearers of fate. And it could be a person, it could be an inclination, but that's another thing that I'm looking to discern and plug into.
Okay.
Now, number 3 are guides. And these are literally those guiding, those things, those entities that are guiding someone forward. Now, it is these guides that manipulate the runes and make them fall into place. You catch that?
Yes.
It is the guides that are purportedly making the selection to give you insight.
Okay.
And this is that first real rubber road example that we have of what the hell is going on. You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to believe it.
And I'm reading ahead.
Okay.
Go on.
I'm not asking you to believe it. And I'm just saying this is what they're saying
I know.
is happening.
Yep.
This is the rubber and the meets the road. When we ask what's happening,
mechanics.
this is what's happening. Now, the actual details are complicated, and I've really, really watered this down. I purposefully have left out the Germanic terms such as the Norns and the Valkyries, but these are the main concepts at play in runic divination.
Are you sure you want to leave them out? I am assuming that when you talked about the guides, you were talking about the Norns.
Yeah, I mean, the Norns are represented up in the cause and effect, and the Valkyries can be guides. I mean, there's a lot of complexity there.
There is.
You can, I mean, if you feel like you want to mention and talk about it, go for it.
I wasn't sure how you were equating them because I don't know what Bloom says about this, but yeah, the runes are tied to the Norse mythology.
Right.
You mentioned how Odin revealed the runes by sacrificing himself to himself on Yggdrasil. Mm-hmm. They, at the end of his ordeal, they appeared and he gained knowledge of them
by discovering and casting.
And that ties into some concepts you mentioned earlier about how they were already within him, but it was only by going through that ordeal that he came to that knowledge.
Orlog is actually ordeal is derived from Orlog.
Okay, mm-hmm. And that sacrificial aspect to it means that this kind of knowledge does not come without some difficulty, pain, mm-hmm. self-reflection, mm-hmm. Trial, error, mm-hmm. trial, success, cycles.
And this is reflected also in Hermetic philosophy, where you've got the concept of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. But you never go back to that original knowledge. You're always a little smarter. You're working through an ever-increasing and an ever-heightening hierarchy of knowledge, understanding, and application of wisdom.
Right.
And, of course, the invective to know thyself is really the key of that. So, I mean, you are hitting all the proper points.
I'm trying. There's some other interesting things going on about the Norns, in that the Norns stand separate from the gods mm-hmm. in Norse mythology. Mm-hmm. And even the gods must be held accountable to the Norns. Mm-hmm. There is a modern perception of the Norns as being a tripartite goddess. Mm-hmm.
Not unlike out of... go ahead. I was going to say the Shakespeare.
Yes, mm-hmm. that's one representation. That's actually why it's that modern perception exists. Is that because when you talk about Wyrd, you can't escape the Wyrd sisters, who are the three witches from Macbeth,
right?
Or the Fates from Greek mythology. Of course, this probably all points back to some original Indo-European mm-hmm. tribal mythology that all of this comes out of. But in actuality, the Norns are not numbered in Norse mythology. There is no set number of them. It's just that modern perception based on these other cultural influences we have of the three. Mm-hmm. But that's important because in some ways they are related. And the three goddesses gives us that notion of one is spinning the wool, one is into a thread, one is gathering the thread up, and then one is cutting the thread at the end. That is mm-hmm. much more of a Greek fate idea.
Right.
But that ties into what's going on with the runes too, in that they are manipulating your Wyrd, your fate, your doom. These words are all about the same.
So you're referring to, and this is pronunciation that's beyond me. I'm going to do the best I can.
Okay.
Erdher, which is one of the Norns, Verhandi, and Skuld.
Skuld, yes.
Yeah.
Skuld,
So,
I think, is the one that
and
is
those were the
traditionally
ones
now
that
is associated with the snipping.
Yeah, and
But,
that which shall be.
Yeah, there's a lot we don't know about Norse religion, which is why I say we have this image of them being three, but we don't know for certain what that number is. And then the way that
it's reflective of the Trinity, right? The concept that I've got three entities in one is a paradox and a mystery.
Maybe, and that's all I want to say on that.
Right.
But there's also this idea that there are these entities in the Norse mythology, the Norse religion, that stand aside from the gods. The Norns are one of them, and there's enough ambiguity in what we've got today, because we don't have a lot, that it's possible the Valkyries are also numbered with the Norns. And it depends on which scholar you're talking to about that one. So I'm not saying that as a set thing. But in this context, it's interesting because the Norns are essentially setting out your fate through that process I sort of illustrated. The runes are helping you interpret that. The Valkyrie and Odin has discovered those runes for you and has shared that knowledge with you. There's some other mythology that I don't know what will come up yet, but the Valkyries are messengers of Odin. So they are acting in the world, and in some ways they are acting on behalf of Odin to shape your fate as well, because that's why you get the notion of them coming down to the battlefield and selecting the dead to go back to the halls of Odin. So all of this is part of that tradition, and
and this is why I left it out. Because you could nerd out like John is doing,
and
right
I am
now.
nerding out on it. But that tradition's deep.
Yeah,
and it suggests you can manipulate it as well, and that the gods are also manipulating you. And yet there's something that even the gods can't change.
That's wrapped up in the idea, the bearers of fate. What attachments do I have? What's the vision of the god of me? You've mentioned again the insight into action, reaction, cause and effect. There's also the notion that it's not. There is even a term that I refer to the book, but I left it out because some of these words are just you're never going to remember them. That reincarnation is part of this deep. Potentially, yes. Is part of it too. And the idea is that this very ingrained, when I kept saying very, very ingrained, it's not just what you did from birth to now. There is the sense in the reincarnation that your past lives are also digging this deep trench of ingrained activity. And that, of course, the goal is to overcome this by, again, interacting with the Norns, with the Valkyries, with the gods, to reveal through ordeal what might change your outcomes, basically helping you make better choices. So
but you can't. There's also a sense that you can't trust that because Odin is manipulating you. He is an untrustworthy deity in this pantheon. Yeah, he is trying to get you.
Well, but this is
where he wants you to be. He is manipulating the chessboard in a sense.
Yeah, but they do leave the notion that it is open. Again, but that falls under the number 2, the bearers of fate. Who's attached to me? What's strongly influencing me? A trickster god is all a part of that, but that still leaves you as the center of it.
Yeah.
That you're at the center, and you have this long lineage through lifetimes potentially. I'm sure there are plenty of people that just want to go and argue these things because we can't know them.
Right.
I'm presenting strictly from the viewpoint of what Edred Thorson put forward. So if somebody's out there going, "Oh, Thorson doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about," you might be. I don't know whether you are or not. And again, what we were saying is that Ralph Blum is certainly somebody that didn't want to respect. And I just say he didn't want to respect what he was handed to, or maybe he was just ignorant that there was an order in the first place.
No,
I'm not entirely sure. But he reordered them. Again, also, we have this understanding that the form of this can even leave Nordic history and Nordic concepts and evolve to be something on its own, like tarot did.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Actually, the more you talked about Blum in the reordering, I'm not sure that we have an order as it was used back in the day. I think that it may have been ordered by antiquarians somewhere in the
could be
19th century Victorian
I don't know.
British Museum or something. I don't
That is a
recall
great question.
off the top of my head where the order
here.
came from.
It is listed in here. And again, I'm just choosing not to go into this detail.
Yeah.
I'm happy to, we could do a part
No,
two and dig
I
deeper.
don't want to, it just occurred to me. That's all. I don't mean to pull you off on that. I think we can move on to the meditation, but
yeah, well, I mean,
I just don't know that there is any sacredness to this order to begin with.
Like you indicated, the criteria for being called the Elder Futhark is that it had an order in the first place. Now, where that came from,
but I don't know that
it's hard to know because this is not a society that left a lot of written record.
Right, and the recollection that sprung to mind was that Futhark was our term, a modern term. Not necessarily an old term like
in interpreting with the French guy that interpreted the Sumerian tablets, what did he instantiate that's actually promulgated throughout that's wrong? Because after all, we came away, with Sitchin's ideas. You know what I mean? Like we heap scorn on Sitchin. It's like, well, how could you think that? Well, it's like it's in the translations. I didn't make it up. I didn't do the translations. I'm going off the other guy's translations. If he put something wrong in there, that's on him. So yeah, as you can see, folks, John has a lot of this like ready to go in his head and knowledge, but even he's saying, right, like it's all conjecture.
A lot of it's conjecture, and we'll change with the scholar you talk to. Yep.
Yeah. But awesome. Way to go. Way to bring that all forward just without any prompting. So we're accessing our God selves when we do this. And I might have missed a turn there.
And by the way, I think that's true in the sense of this ritual is that, you are reenacting what Odin did in that moment. So yes.
Yeah. So we're, like I said, we're accessing our God selves when we do this. John's just referred to that, Odin's ordeal of hanging from Yggdrasil. But how is that different, then I ask, than meditating to calm down the DMN? And I don't think we've used that term here on the show. That's the default mode network. When we talk to our inner selves, our higher mind, our guides, our spirit guides, if that's something that you want to bring in, our intuitive selves, the DMN is that chatterbox. We're going to get to that. I didn't want us to get too far from that without explaining what the DMN is. Now, quickly, meditation is meant to quiet that monkey mind, the rational brain, all that constant yapping that saps attention, so the inner voice can come forward. Now, this could be considered intuition, and yes, it's popularized with the very mundane term, listen to your gut. That is something we tell folks. And that's saying listen to your enteric brain, that gut that lives in your brain. I probably could pin that too. But these are pointing at the same ideas. But again, let's come back to the runes. With rune casting, we want the symbols on the little chits to speak instead. So like meditation, are the runes an external action to tune in to our internal selves? Is not the preparation and casting of runes calling for concentration? And do we actually tune in to our inner selves? Well, possibly so. Now, Ralph Blum's book mentions that one day perhaps you will not need the runes, and you will speak directly to yourself. Now, from this perspective, runes then are a type of ancient therapy session. And before you can trust in your invisible self, you must trust in something external first. The safety of a counselor's chambers where things are said out loud, perhaps for the first time. Now, runes are almost a path of discovery, aren't they? An initiation practice for one to realize that all the answers are really within you. After all, with a little discipline, one eventually figures out that one will speak their own healing. The counselor was only asking questions the entire time. You held the answers all along. Now, a sidebar note, one thing we definitely learned from Melanie in our tarot episode is that the reader must put up defenses while one is interrogating, questioning, maybe even challenging another's being or their essence. You never really know who's walking in, and sometimes people themselves have no idea who they really are inside. Now, I suspect there are many walking around who are like this. That is, really clueless and fast asleep. So all that unbridled energy, as Melanie suggests, can go off like an energy bomb. Best to be protected. Now, does this speak to our human desire or need to seek counsel or counseling? Is this part of our initiation into the idea that we are what we seek? Now, this also begs the question, why is dogmatic religion so incredibly popular? Do people just want the answer told to them without any real seeking, stretching, questing, or having an ordeal? Is everyone able to undertake this type of questing? Now, the runes suggest others want a more direct approach, seeking a one-to-one connection with their inner divine self. Now, separately, I'm observing these things. Ads offering online therapy on their rise. Maybe you've heard them, John.
Yes.
At a minimum, they're out there. Now, I think that's a change. That is the advertisement of therapy for mental wellness. I think generally this is good to burn down the stigma with seeking counseling, but does this raise a concern about a mental health crisis? Perhaps the mental problems have always been there. The difference is now we're doing more about it. I don't know, John, any insight there?
No, not at the moment.
All right. Now, these books were written in the 1980s, and I recall bumping into runes in my college days in the early 1990s. Is that when you encountered them? Do you remember when you first knew of the runes or heard of? Can you remember?
Would have been as a kid in the 80s when I read Dolaire's Norse mythology book.
Oh, no, that's the nerding out. I gotcha. Okay, so you've known for a while.
I've known about runes for a while. I mean,
All
I didn't
right.
know much about. I didn't know a whole lot more about them than what I learned in that for a while. But yeah,
Okay. All right, I'm just wondering. No need to pin you down. You could say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But my memory recalls even having an acquaintance doing a reading for me with the runes. Now, I found it a positive experience. And this person explained to me that runes can only bring good things to you, and they're never harmful. And I never really forgot that. But it really didn't inspire a lifelong journey with them. And I'm only returning to them now by way of seeking weird paranormal topics. You know, the strange variety. But I'm also reminded of paranormal topics suggesting that humanity is going through a great spiritual awakening, that people of all walks are waking up. No, not woke, waking up spiritually. Now, this is hinted at in Vedic tradition by the Yuga cycles. The cycles speak to distinct ages of awakening mankind purportedly lives through over long spans of time. Now, this is also in the backlog and an intriguing idea that I think we should play with because it's out there and some folks are really considering it. Now, again, let's bring it back to the runes and divination. After all is said and done, what is in it for the quest taker, the risk taker, that hero on their journey, to engage with all these divination techniques? Well, nothing less than access to divine insight, apparently. And at a minimum, spending some time in quiet contemplation, asking yourself what you think just might be a good idea. All right. Now, let's move into some modern use, a few notes here, and then we end up with a question that maybe some are thinking about. I hinted at it.
Okay.
Now, as we said before, At the Well of the Weird by Edred Thorson takes issue with Ralph Blum's very popular book. It comes prepackaged with serviceable ceramic runes so that you can get started right away. But the criticism suggests runes made with one's own hands are the best. John, you've talked about that. You've done it yourself. I find it hard to argue with that idea. The act of creation is powerful, and having your personal intention, your life energy, your time and attention infused into the runes is probably very powerful.
And it's a lot easier than hanging yourself on a tree, getting stabbed by a spear, and, wasting away for a metaphorical week or so before, the runes just suddenly appear to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much
losing
easier.
an eye in the process.
I think that's got to do with with the Well of Mimir. But go on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
A different sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, I find it fascinating, John, that you would choose to cosplay Odin. What does that say about your personality?
It does say something about my personality.
The ordeals
it is indeed
of John.
It is indeed a choice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, the materials you choose is also important. You've mentioned, John, that the wood chips seem a little light, but that the plastic stones has got more heft.
Yeah,
Still
but they're
plastic.
They're plastic. They just seem it's but I guess that depends on how you want to approach the material in that we are 21st century beings. Mm-hmm. There's probably nothing wrong with the plastic clay. That is a bit of our time and place in the universe right now. Yeah. Whereas the wood seems a bit more traditional and organic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what we say next is that traditionally wood was used for the obvious reasons. Yeah. It was plentiful and easy to work. But in the Germanic tradition, wood symbolically reminds us of Yggdrasil, the world tree from which Odin hung. Now, it is in these sense the roots of the Well of Weird lies and branches out in a shimmering web amidst the runes, or so it goes. Now, runes can be made of other materials. We talked about that. They can take other shapes like bone or metal. They can be circular runes, chips that you use. They could be squares, like little runic Scrabble pieces. That's a good image to hold. Or even made into cards, using heavy paper stock like a tarot deck. Mm-hmm. Now, your preferences, usage, and intuition play a big part in what you'll gravitate to. In fact, foregoing the store-bought chits and making your own is the recommended path, as we've said. But again, I remind you, that's not required. Thorson says, a bit of paper will do it in a pinch, but if you plan to make a practice of it and you have the ability, why not create your own? And as we learned in our tarot episode, there is something real at play here. Dean Radin tells us magic exists. Mitch Horowitz, a writer that I've been picking up on lately, a famous author, he's a new thoughter, and he's also of the mind that there is an ineffable quality, an undercurrent that anyone can tap into. All right, well, let's head towards the end here. I guess the question might come up with these divination arts is, can this hurt me? Now, I don't know about you, John, but first of all, I'll say I have never heard of or came across any information where the runes brought unwanted spiritual attention to the runester. And by attention, I mean an attachment, a haunting, or any residual outside effect. I'm not aware of any of those stories. Now, metaphysically, I think the conversation begins and ends with you or with the person casting on your behalf. But even if they're talking directly to you and your higher self. Now, unlike the Ouija board, which needs an energy to step forward and drive the planchette, you alone are the energy being invoked and interrogated for insight with the runes. Ouija calls in spirits to see what they know. Runes call your higher spirit to reveal what it knows. And that is a huge difference. So that's about the story that I have to tell you officially with the runes. Where would you like to go, John? Any thoughts on the Ouija and the interplay there?
I'm not aware of any stories about using the runes causing any unwanted spiritual attention. But I also think that rune casting is a lot more rare or uncommon than using a Ouija board, which, as we know, you can buy at any Target or Walmart.
Right. Yeah. Was it Parker Brothers owns it? Who is it?
I can't remember right now. I'm blanking on that at the moment. I'll have to go back and re-listen. Who has it? Hasbro, maybe.
Hasbro.
I think they've got so much. I'm not aware of that, but like I said earlier, so something else that came out that I found very interesting in this reading. You're approaching this in a very syncretic way. Like, yeah. Okay. And that's that's fine. And I'm trying to come to terms with that because I think that informs
which I do in a lot of topics.
Yeah.
If you'll notice,
Yeah.
I don't. I'm fine with sort of blurring the edges.
Yeah. And if you're looking at this in a syncretic way, that may put up a defense to what I'm about to say. If I'm, and again, if you believe any of this at all, when I was riffing before about the way the runes appear in the mythology, in what remnant of the religion exists, there is the suggestion that because they come through Odin, who is an untrustworthy patron, and something of an
asshole.
Yeah. I mean, and it's
he is.
Yeah, he is.
So was Zeus apparently.
Yeah. You could end up with a reading that, or a nudge is probably a better way to put it, in the wrong direction from the reading. That's not the same as an attachment like you describe here in this sense, or but it is sort of an unwanted attention in a sense. In that the more you use the runes, the more you're tapping into an energy flow that potentially when you're not being syncretic might hew more closely or flow more closely by that particular spiritual energy of Odin.
Yeah.
That might get his attention in a way that you don't really want.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
And
if you're not as syncretic as the way you've approached this.
So I actually own up to that wholeheartedly, because I believe that we string these ideas together, and I look for the commonalities. But if you're going to cleave closely to the Nordic tradition, and everything that I sort of threw out just out of complexity for the sake of complexity and avoiding it, there are notions in the book that you could ask one question, but you come away with the impression that the rune you drew or was given, and you are God, right? But you've been looking for
that's a syncretic
but you get
here.
it back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get you. Okay, well, whatever you received in the Nordic tradition, you could actually be given a rune that's speaking to something else.
Yeah.
And there's your nudge, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I get it. You care about this interview. I'm telling you about your marriage. Like, I asked about an interview. I'm getting this rune, and I can't help but think that they're telling me about my shitty marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or there's something in my marriage I should fix. You know what I mean? Whatever the context is.
Yeah.
And that's the nudge that I think you're talking about. Now, also, Odin being the asshole, right, is going to probably try and nudge you into that very ingrained life.
He is more likely to nudge you towards something that positively outcomes himself.
Okay.
That's not necessarily a negative outcome for you, but
it's not what you're asking for.
It's not this. Yeah, it's a positive. There could be more than one positive outcome, and the most positive outcome for you might not necessarily benefit him.
Right.
He pushes you in the other direction.
Yeah. Well, and this could be
because he's got his own agenda.
You might be poking at the heart of, and I would have to read these closer, but you might be poking at the real difference that Thorson or the takes Blum to task on, which is Blum has so watered down away from the Nordic tradition that it becomes sort of this bubblegum new thought kind of, just self-helpy kind of thing.
I like that. If that's what he's saying, that's something that is, I think, as I listen to you and wrestle with the concept that you laid out here, which, like I said, syncretic, more new thought, It's I think I would probably be and end up in that space that, this is the tarot have been, what's the word? I almost want to use the word laundered through several traditions and are part of a syncretic tradition at this point. The runes less so. That's why that gap is important to me.
Well, the gap is important to you, but I would also offer that. I think I might have lost my train of thought, but you're making the case that Odin has this type of influence based on that. But I wonder. The question is, where are we drawing? And again, this is just me like asking for information. Where do we get this information about Odin having this personality in the first place? Like, if you're telling me that we know nothing about Futhark, the Order, or anything really, and we're inferring from others maybe who wrote about the Norse, which I presume that's where we're getting it.
We have
any?
We have snippets of. We have some rare snippets of Norse mythology from a variety of sources.
Yeah.
Snorri Sturluson's Poetic Edda, which and the Prose Edda, but they are also syncretic in some ways. They are written post introduction of Christianity, so there are questions about the hanging on the tree being maybe a little too close to the crucifixion.
That's all over Egyptian. Lore as well, and that Christianity actually borrowed from Egyptian.
But we have
motifs.
And we've got some other views from outsiders. Christian clerics that were sent to evangelize the Norse countries.
Right.
So they're unreliable in some ways as well. But what's interesting is that the written down material we have tends to match up against material culture items that have been preserved from the believers themselves. And for example, there's the story of Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, the world serpent that is a sea monster that Thor fights. There are rune stones, depictions in places of Jormungandr and Thor battling it out. So and ways that closely mirror the important parts of the story. So we feel like we've got the central thrust, but we don't know what we don't know is part of the problem. So the personality of Odin comes out in a lot of these places, and it seems to be pretty consistent that he is an inconsistent kind of an asshole. With his own agenda all the time at the same, and most of his agenda is to stave off the end of the world any way possible, and that's for the betterment of the gods and humanity to the extent he can do it, but mostly to the benefit of the gods. He's constantly on the search for hidden knowledge, for esoteric knowledge. That's why he goes out in search of the runes. That's why he goes out in search of the mead of poetry. That's why he gives up his eye. That's why he has the giant Mimir. He's got him captive effectively to consult. It's so his personality is there, but we don't know what we don't know, and there are snippets that of these things that come out that suggest there are
you should have
stories
written this episode.
There are stories that aren't out there that we have hints at because of the way they wrote their poetry.
I mean, so what? Yeah. So given all that, John, so how would you approach the rune? Tell us your approach to the runes then. If you're sensing a danger, let the folks know.
I don't know that there's a danger. So I don't know that there's a danger that is inherent in them. Like one might say there's an inherent danger to the Ouija because you're letting in the outside spirit. I think there is a sense where you would need to be very reflective upon what you're doing with the runes and how you use the runes to guide what you do. Divination is probably still the right word, but I think if I were to approach him, my approach would be almost like Wyrd, almost like a journal. Is in the sense that and I hinted at that when I said you pull your rune at the beginning of the day and say what's my day going to be like, but you reflect on it at the end of the day. In the same way that you might write down in your journal, this is what happened today and what it means.
I would just push back on that because they were, at least Thorson was clear that your future is potentials, right? The idea is that if you're trying to get beyond your very ingrained past,
That's interesting.
there is the future. And again, how far do you want to take this, right?
Yeah.
That you're choosing potentials, and the reflection is on, what can I expect from my day? And if I give you this, I am given insight into my past, the current unfolding, and the potential that I have going forward. And so you're saying that I'm going to get some reflection of what I should later reflect on. In other words, it's pointing to a future that exists already. And that's not what they're saying. And they're very clear on that, at least in Thorson's book.
That's interesting to me because that's not necessarily the sense you get from the Norse worldview.
So maybe even Thorson goes a little more progressive. In which case, where can we lay the marker at all?
Yeah, but there's less of an idea of complete and utter free will in the Norse worldview. There is a sense that those Norns, again, the gods must be held accountable to the Norns as well. There's a sense that the Norns, when they lay out your skein of life, know what's going to happen in your life. And the best you can do is show up and be the best person you can at every moment.
Well, that's a common motif too, but you still, despite the future being set, you still have the free will to choose.
You choose how you approach your life.
This is the omnipotence of God, knowing already, but yet the paradox is that you have the free will in the first place.
Yeah, it's not.
And so now we're arguing like the syncretic view that these books are putting various stances on, and your perceived narrow view, right? Narrow only in the respect of the syncretic view, right? Mm-hmm. Of the very strict adherence to the Nordic variety. And I think, yes, that exists.
Yeah.
But I think that's far away, in a way, different from what we're currently doing with them. I should say we, like the people writ large.
Yeah.
Because of people like Blum that wrote a book that really stripped away a lot of that, and gave it a little bit more access. So I guess in the end of the day,
well, I mean,
it would come down to what you believe.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm stuck because you asked me, how do you use the runes?
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't. Because I do believe in free will, that it's our choices which make us, and I can choose to be a good person, or I can choose to be an evil one. I can choose to be a kind person. I can choose to be an a-hole. And of course, nobody ever makes all the same choices along the one path. But that's what gives you free will. I do believe in that. And what I'm saying is that this comes out of a tradition where the best information we have indicates that free will was not as open it was not the concept we have today.
That's strange, because that completely is against what the book says.
But
here. So his version of it.
I don't. All right.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
He's
not
probably
saying
different.
You're wrong.
Yeah, he's
I'm
probably
just saying,
different.
I'm saying that. I mean, I was in here today, so I could probably find the spot where he basically says, it's not set. Orlog into the future is not set.
But this is why
I don't want to have to go find it.
This is why you look at.
But the other thing too is I think I think an interesting correlation here too is if we want to drag it a little bit further into actual scientific research that's happening right now, the best of our physical theorists are saying that all those potentials exist in an infinite number of universes. Right.
That's one. That's one of the theories.
All those futures exist.
That's one of those.
But you're
theories that's out
choosing
there.
one, and you're laying down your life path. The unfoldment in the present is actually you selecting from any one of an infinite number. Like, there is a future out there. There is a dimension out there where John doesn't have glasses. There's a future out there where Mike has the the black hair. There's a future out there where this or that or the other thing, and all the infinite possibilities exist. And so I think that, again, when we try and come back to these religions and beliefs, we're cutting closely between is it or is it not already set. So I don't know. I mean, you're painting a picture.
I'm trying to explain to you as best I can what modern scholarship tends to think of or tries to understand the Norse worldview.
Yeah.
Is that your choices were not so much about what happens as how you approach it, which is hard, I guess, in some ways to understand, because I can choose to be Eeyore about everything and still end up dead on the same day of battle. But that's the thing, is that you're going to end up with the person you end up with. You're going to end up dying the way you die, and nothing is going to stop that because the Norns laid that out. And that's why when you look back at the record and try to read the material, either the chronicles that exist that lay out the history, or the poetry that gives you some insight into how they think about things, when a Viking age, a Norse hero, a Norse person, and a king wakes up and says, okay, today I'm going to go into battle, he's not worried about, am I going to survive anymore? He's just, his worldview is, what happens today happens today. I win, I lose, I live, I die. My choice is how I approach that. I can be a coward and run, but if today's my day to die, I just die looking like a fool, like the coward that I am if I run. Or it's just a different way of looking at these things. It's not that all my choice is gone. It's that the Norns have laid out ahead. It's almost the concept of, so you described the concept about the infinite possibilities and that there are infinite universes where all the things happen. But one of the competing concepts right now is time, as we perceive it, is simply one way to keep everything from happening all at once. That really, if you exist from a different dimensional aspect, all time would happen at once. In which case everything happened. It all happened. So I really, what I perceive as my free will is really me making.
Yeah, I just said that.
Okay,
you realize I just said that.
Yeah. I know. I'm saying that, but you talked about the infinite possibilities. The other one is that everything that's going to happen has already happened. We're just perceiving it as one. Yeah. That's
but
two different worldviews.
But they're effectively the same thing. All of them are already out there. That's what I'm saying. Like, the infinite possibility is not like there is a lack of it. The infinite possibility is that all of those, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
way to
now,
try
let me
to
just read this
reconcile
very
it, yes.
quickly, and you can decide, and we'll end on this.
Okay.
Now, here's the beginning of this. Now, he's described some concepts above, and he says, if these concepts are fully understood, it will be easy to see the true nature of the Germanic concept of fate, Orlog, is not a set and immutable thing. In fact, it is being transformed constantly by ongoing action. However, Orlog is a powerful force and one from whose grasp few can escape once certain patterns of action become ingrained. The well-known Germanic fatalism is, for the most part, an exoteric understanding of this process. Your skald is affected even determinedly by Urtir, your Wyrd. Wyrd is essentially past action, which has been formulated and absorbed by your being. Now, it's saying when I kept saying your likely future is based upon your very ingrained past. I think the two little division, the hair's breadth of difference that we're talking about is in the Nordic culture, which presumably is different from Germanic. That's an open question that I would have. If you're talking Nordic, he's saying Germanic. It might be a hair's difference, right? If he's drawing strictly from Germanic, maybe it is a syncretic view that just expands it out a little bit.
I don't know what tradition he's coming out of.
I think that's the difference.
I have some questions about some of that.
You should buy it and read it.
Between the end of the Middle Ages and 1980s when that was written, there's a lot of water
There's a
under
lot that can happen.
There's a lot of water under the bridge,
And-
and there's a hotbed of German occultism through a lot of that period. That could affect how he's reading that and whatever tradition he was taught or self-taught in, which is perfectly fine if he's not part of some. It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speak for him or try to.
Well,
but
I can certainly see.
Like I said, that's why the gap matters to me.
It's not well. Yeah, well, and we're arguing about the unknown things that we can't possibly know. You're cleaving very closely to the Nordic because I think you identify with it and you learned it, and you want to say this is the root of it all. And I'm saying, okay, I think so. I think there's a lot of influence that it has, but you've also told me that there's huge gaps. There's lots of influences. It's not as that these people lived on an island and were never contacted.
No, I'm sure he's syncretic as well because there are things that happen.
Well, I'm telling you that so were the Vikings. That's what I'm telling you. They were world travelers. You can't tell me that they were influenced.
I'm not going to deny that, and I'm also going to tell you that the other thing is what we know about their world is very thin in some ways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like we have a mass, a hymnal or something that tells us, a missal that tells us exactly how they practice their religion. In fact, we know that they differed from place to place, probably from farm to farm. But their worldview does come out in the material that. Yeah,
and I'm telling you, I don't think it comes out as strongly a honed knife edge as maybe you're.
I'm not sure I'm saying it's a strongly honed knife edge either. I'm just saying that it doesn't seem to match up with this idea that free will is there. That
we can't know. Okay. We've got your view of whatever influences you're bringing in. I've got this Thorson book that has the one view. We've got Blum, who probably brought it more into. Because millions of copies of this apparently have been sold.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they have. I sold a bunch of them myself.
And So again, I think we could really try and determine the root of this, but I think we'll just save it for part 2. Do you want to come back to it? Do you want to do some research and come back? Do you want to read the Thorson book and see what your thoughts are on it, and maybe determine that he's pulling on Germanic, which was more. Not Norse, it was, the Goths, because, frankly, this book says Nordic Viking, and it uses the word Viking, but I have to be honest. And I wish I could have, I read this sooner. I was pulling forward a script that was less fresh in my brain, so I was really skimming. This says Old Norse. But anyway. I think there's a lot of differences that are just unknowable, and I think different folks are going to present it in different ways and change it. You can't.
Sure.
You can't change it.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't do the syncretic method, and I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just noting the differences between where they're at now when they write something in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. And, the last time that runes were a living tradition, I mean.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't think we understand as much as maybe you think we do. I don't know. It seems like you're telling me it's thin. And it seems like thin means thin. Like we don't know.
Yeah. So what are they building on?
I don't know. What are they building on?
That's my question.
They have, what are you building on?
Okay.
We'll have to leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well, we've come up with a conundrum. What are we building the runic tradition on? I don't know. I think we'll have to come back with a part 2 because I think you should do the research.
Okay.
And come back and you can read the Thorson book and you can tell us the differences between. Is there appreciable differences between strictly Germanic? Is the Nordic part of it, not part of it?
I just don't know what he's basing his
right. Yeah, and I can't.
On.
I wish I could.
Know.
I wish I could tell you.
I don't know. I don't think there. I mean, and a lot of it is a lot of it's matching up, and a lot of it isn't. So the question is, where is he? Where has he moved on from? And I'm not saying that you can't do that. Like I said, you clearly
there's
approach
no rules to this.
Yeah, you clearly approach this material as syncretic. I also noted that maybe that does throw up some of those defenses you were talking about against potential interference from wherever. But so it's not. I'm not saying you can't take that approach. It's just that this is why the gap matters to me. Again, before we started recording, we talked about how Wicca, in one sense, is a continuation of witchcraft traditions from Europe in the past, and at the same time, it's also not. It's a modern expression of older ideas that are extremely syncretic. And if you're a devout follower of that, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. That's not my place.
Yeah.
It's just it's sort of a
I don't feel like I'm wrong at all.
No.
I don't think these guys are right.
I don't think they're wrong.
I don't
think they're wrong.
I mean,
I'm
I'm
just
not
noting
entirely
some
sure.
differences here.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And I mean, I think with these empty, with a whole group of people that didn't write a lot down. We do have some things, but I mean, we're looking through a tiny keyhole trying to see the whole ballroom.
I agree. Yeah.
And to come away with like some certainty just doesn't seem like a good move. And these books,
I don't know that I'm being certain about that in that sense, but okay.
You feel certain. I mean, you feel like there's like an affront between what Thorson is saying, and I can't represent it. I mean, I can't really follow you there. I can only tell you what I read in the book. I'm not.
I'm saying there's a break. I'm saying I see a break
book.
in their thinking from what
Yeah.
existed up to that point of Christianization of the Norse world, which was less about that free will and much more about my fate is laid out for me when I'm born. Right? And I can only choose on how I approach my fate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it sounds like maybe some tribes like broke from that tradition.
I just simply think that between that and when they wrote that, there is a lot of more syncretism, like you're approaching this, so that they're getting it from different places, which is fine.
Yeah. Well, I'd be like to. So, do you know of any runic books out there written strictly from the Nordic
No
position?
I mean, I do,
or
but
someone that would represent that position that you're talking
I know
about?
of some that try.
Because that would be interesting.
But that's why the gap matters to me. So when the Norse world is Christianized and this goes away, the living tradition of how to read the runes, what the runes meant individually, disappeared.
Okay.
And there's nothing there. So there's a gap of some hundreds of years. And then it comes, but the runes themselves didn't disappear as a written communication method.
Interestingly,
so it's the divination that disappears, and we don't have a continuity with. Now there are people who claim there's continuity. I can't stop that. I can't. I can try to find some scholars that refute it, but it goes away when they're told, "Hey, you're Christian now."
Just to I get.
And they basically were.
I get you.
Yeah.
So. Because I know it was in here, and I'm really just scanning.
I mean, there's some things that survive in bits and pieces in Iceland. I'm sure there are bits and pieces
also
that
within
survive
the formal
elsewhere.
tradition of the 24-stave Futhark, there was a South Germanic runic tradition which flourished in the 6th and 7th centuries, especially in Bavaria, Alemannia, and Thuringia, and Scandinavia. Then we go on, but even at the beginning of the history, they're talking about Yugoslavian use. So it's all over, and and the truth is that who was also all over were the Vikings. They sailed through Russia, and who knows the distances that they got. I know we have evidence for certain distances that they got, very clearly, but who knows how far their thoughts got beyond them to influence all of these things, and certainly getting changed along the way. So anyway, wow. Okay, big rabbit hole there. I'm sure no one is listening to this point. I would hope that if you are, get these books, because that'll help you understand what we're trying to get at, which is we don't know, and we just don't. And some scholars think maybe they do and they have an idea, but I don't know. We've got all these other ideas that are coming forward that apparently are in disagreement. And so that's where we're going to leave it. We don't know, but it's worth investigating. We're probably going to have to come back to a part 2 and see what else about this history we can learn from further research. And I'll read the book closer and refresh my memory a little better. I was pulling on an old script that I had to freshen up. All right. Anything else? What else do you want to get out there? What other are there any other actually differing worldviews that are also in suspicion in your mind that we should set up for the next time?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Well, the next one's on you.
Okay.
We'll do runes part 2. It'll be on you, and I'll do my homework in order to just represent everything else, anything else that can be found, the syncretic version of it that would be just representative of all the different twists and turns that it's taken. And you can tell us what that gap is, why it's important, and spell out all the details there.
Okay.
Does that sound good, or does that interest you at all? You look exhausted.
I am
Here
exhausted.
we find ourselves.
I am
at-
exhausted.
Well, we're
I'm not-
interested in the information.
Sure. I don't know when I'm going to get around to that actually, but
I didn't say tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I will put this into my backlog and I'll do some research on it and find it. But I fear like that's going to end up sounding very, very boring and academic.
Well, that does give a clue as to how closely we're cleaving these ideas. It is extremely deep in the back of books.
And I guess I don't mind that people want to pick up the runes and use them for divination and assign value to them and assign.
Seem. That's a good question because you definitely seem like assaulted by this or something.
No,
like a huge affront that they would break with like Nordic beliefs.
No, I don't.
Something. I don't
they
know.
can do what they want to do with the runes in the same way that people do what they want to do with the tarot cards. It's. I mean, there's no one set way to read the tarot cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing we could do is maybe look for a rune expert, somebody that says, "Hey, yeah, I've studied this up and down," and just interrogate them and say, "What do you think? What do you notice of the understanding of fate?" So I'll take that part on.
Okay.
If it interests you,
I can
do some
I can
reading.
look at some of the. I can look back at some of the Norse history podcasts I've listened to over the years and see who comes up there. Again, they're academics, and they're going to tell you, well, this is what we know, and it's thin, and but these are the consistencies we see over time, and that's what I'm trying to express here. But yeah, we ultimately there's a lot we don't know, and you're talking about 200 plus years of history where things change,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, it certainly does. And again, as I pointed out, used to be there was a subsect of people that could actually understand them in the first place, and now you can go to Amazon and get your version of both Ralph Blum's book, The Book of Runes, and then Edred Thorson's At the Well of Wyrd, a handbook for runic divination. And so there we go. Let's leave it there.
Okay.
Let's leave it there. All right, gang. Well, thank you for listening. We dug deep into academia on that one. I hope you enjoyed all of that, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.